the often forgotten fact from Jim Collins, which was a result of his study of over 200 companies in the book Good to Great, is that he concluded that it took 7 to 10 years for the average company to figure out all the internal systems they needed to scale. And we basically drop in pre-built generic systems and then tune them for that company in that space.
And my big idea is, how do I work with our peers that are coming to me from our Peers on Demand session? And I'm showing up as an investor for the last 30 years, consulting for as many years, coaching businesses for the last 15 years. And so I started this program that we call Peers on Demand. Many of them, not all of them, but many of them were looking for funding, either to generate connections with investors externally or internally to generate revenue internally. And so the opportunity is really, how do we engage in conversations and help them grow their business to be able to generate revenue short term, and perhaps along the way find an investor to do that. And so that's the initiative for our world that we call coventures.world, to be able to bring in different peers in different areas that perhaps want to grow their business, anywhere from not just investments, but also all of us, including myself, could take advantage of the marketing expertise, the technology expertise, the e-commerce distribution, even healthcare and advisory, even philanthropic. And as this continues to evolve and grow, and that's my intention, we'll have more and more tangents in different industries that perhaps are more specific, and not just physically in the US or North America. We have a Malaysia aspect contingency that we're growing with co-venture partners in that area of the Southeast Asia. So our aspiration is to expand beyond US to Europe, to Southeast Asia, to Africa, to Latin America, even Australia, and in different areas of these different aspects, and to be able to bring them in to do business. Co-ventures, just another word for do business. We could do that freely. As long as you're doing business to business, we can understand that language, or business to government. As long as you have some sort of product or service that you offer and you can show it on your website, and you're willing to do a revenue share, that makes sense for us to have a discussion. And then from there, partner up with us with the introductions, not just with those three components, but having a mastermind referral session on a weekly basis, having a platform, a community platform, website promotions, video recordings, marketing offerings, and of course, access to funding. We encourage that to be able to have that discussion. And those that want to start their own group, we encourage that. Not only do they have access to all of that, but also we could do a fee revenue share. The point is that we can expand more globally by doing this and being able to make those connections. So that's my big idea. And what I'm looking for is other co-venture partners that could join our world and be able to do that. And actually, it's anywhere in the world. The only limitation is probably beyond what I said, is that we speak English. I haven't figured out how to get across or beyond the language part. I speak Spanish, I know French, I know Italian. Probably eat more pizza than know Italian, but the point is, English is the lingua franca that we have. But I want to welcome a few other people who have joined us, Dr. Steph Ardrey as well. So with that, let's start with Tricia. Tricia, you've got an interesting direction. You're out of Belfast, Ireland. You're the founder for the coffee alternative. I didn't know there was a coffee alternative. I thought coffee is coffee and you can't change the color. But Tricia, maybe you could share, what are the big ideas in your industry, in your business? How do you want to expand your business? But really, let's start first with, what are the big ideas in your industry? Tricia.
Okay, thanks, Rocky. Yeah, well, the big idea would be, so for example, we are a sustainable business, so we don't use any plastic. The big idea for Otzi Brew is, you feel maybe you get the brain fog and the slump in the afternoon because of the crash of coffee. Well, the big idea is that you then switch out your cups of coffee and you switch it out with the Otzi brew, and that will stop the brain fog. It will give you because one is it's a cleanser of the liver, and the other one is great for the gut. So just by switching out your afternoon coffee, the big idea is then it brings more energy into the workforce and stops that brain, fog feeling in the afternoon. That's the big idea, to bring that. There's nowhere in the world doesn't need, a more productive workforce.
Well, I can attest personally that I want to keep my liver and I want to improve my gut. And so you've got that going for you, Tricia. This is, you've got a room full of people who are focused on funding and investing. What exactly is your request? Maybe let's start with the money, and what are you going to do with that, Tricia?
So the request would be for 250K. And that would be to bring awareness and education and marketing to the world. And also it would help with the demand, to fulfill the demand of the orders that we've got.
Okay, that's fair enough. You're in Ireland, so my thought would be, how do you get it beyond Ireland? But let me open it up. We've got a lot of thinkers here that could address that question. Let me open it up to see if Mark or Bob or even Dr. Steph have any questions, comments, thoughts, feedback for Tricia. Anybody?
I guess I'd just like to hear a little bit about the science behind what your claims are. I've been seeing a lot of good stuff lately about coffee being good, which was surprising because we had a lot of doubts of that over the last few decades. But I guess the stimulant effect has been shown to stave off some health benefits. So maybe a checklist to compare and contrast that you must have somewhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I was a coffee drinker, and I do have the occasional coffee. And the reason I brought this product into creation was because I was one of the people who coffee is not good for me to drink after 12 o'clock, because it stays in the system for 12 hours and it was affecting my sleep. Well, there's no point me setting the business up just for myself. I had to go out and do the research and test. And there were a lot more people than just me out there with the same negative effects on coffee. And
I have that effect myself, Tricia, where I can't have a coffee afternoon or it will keep me up all night. I guess my body gets rid of caffeine slowly. I have one coffee a day and it's half decaf. And for my
yeah.
gut, I take kefir and yogurt and other things and some supplements.
Yeah. Well, that's good for you, because it's good that you know when you can, on that cutoff point of when you can't have any more coffee. So that's why Oxy Brew comes in, to still give you that feeling of coffee. You still have the ritual, you still have that moment of pause for yourself, and to know that it is doing
So what
you.
stimulant is it that gets out of the system quicker than caffeine?
Well, basically it's high in fiber and inulin, and that is what that's a prebiotic for the gut. And the dandelion is known as a clean diuretic. So it cleanses the liver, and whenever it's clearing the system out, it doesn't strip the body of potassium and the other minerals that coffee takes out of your system on the way out.
Mhm. Okay.
How do you spell OptiBrew?
It's a OTZIBREW, Otzi Brew. So Otzi Brew, if you can see.
That seems to be an Irish name, is that right? Because it's
Well,
got a couple of dots on the
the umlaut. I can explain where the name came from. So it's actually two hikers walking across the Otzal Alps about 30 years ago, came across a frozen body coming out of the ground. And when the body was excavated, it transpired to be 5,300 years old. So this body was known as Ötzi the Iceman. So he lies in a museum in Italy, and they were able to find all the things that he had eaten over a long, 5-day period of time. He had eaten 28 different fruits, berries, goat, and they were able to, learn a lot about our nutritional needs from this study.
Yeah, I think that's more than we wanted to find out. There's a deeper dive. That's probably good for a great movie story. I never heard of it, but it's got interesting. More important is I have one more question, but let me see if anybody has a question for Tricia. Anybody?
Well, Tricia,
So-
I like Mark's spelling better. I'm sorry to say.
Actually,
It doesn't
yeah.
have the umlaut that makes people, not know how to pronounce it, and it's based on a local story. And if you want to brand outside the country, you may want something that's sort of more easy to pronounce.
I would like to interject there and say that your own fellow man, Brad Pitt, has a tattoo of Otzi on his left arm.
Oh, okay.
So it's
Yeah, well, I
outside of
don't
my
run my
country.
life and knowledge by his left arm, though, so I don't think that wins anything for you.
Well,
Actually, I agree with Bob. You want to make it English, and there is a story there. So you might have one that fits a particular area. But my question is this: you're in Ireland, and I think you wanted to expand beyond the borders of Ireland. And how much? And I forgot to ask how long you've been in business, but how much penetration have you made so far?
Okay, so we've gone outside of Ireland. We're now in London, which is the capital of the food and drink world for the Europeans anyhow. And so we are now in all 9 Planet Organic stores, which is, I believe, owned by Whole Foods. So yeah, it's we're also on Amazon as
Okay.
well. So that is our online or e-commerce side of things.
Oh,
Yeah.
even better. Yeah. If you can get into Amazon, that'll cross boundaries. So thanks for that, Tricia. Let's find out from Mark Maloney. He's got multiple businesses. He's an aviator. He's got multiple science experience. His father was a golfer that we just found out earlier. But certainly he has an interesting challenge with one of his businesses that he's involved with to be able to really turn them around and get some funding. But maybe, Mark, you could say it better. You've got so many different industries that maybe you could share with us what's uppermost in your mind in that particular industry, in that business, and how do you plan to grow and expand the business? But first, let's start off with the main interest in your business.
So I want to tell Tricia, thanks very much for that wonderful kind of story about your brew. And before I go on, is there anything proprietary about the mix of dandelion, burdock, chicory, lion's mane, chaga? Or is this something that you've concocted that works pretty well?
Yeah, well, I have good. Thank you very much, Mark. For your kind words there, and yeah, I have gone through all of the compliance of the recipes, and I've gone through several, iterations of the recipes, and I have found that these blends are the ones that have worked
Okay.
best.
Well, I'm a huge coffee drinker, so I'm going to try it. I'm going to order some off Amazon, and I'll let you know what I find out. Okay?
Thank you, Mark, very much. Thank
So
you.
Ask your liver. Your liver will tell you,
oh,
Your
my
liver
liver.
will thank you.
or your gut. So go ahead, Mark.
So yeah, don't talk about my liver. I have an aviator's liver, which started off with our early, we used to call it aviator breakfast, coffee and a cigarette. So anyway, uh, the story that I want to throw out today is a Canadian company out of Montreal called Oligomedic. Uh, they started in 2014 by a gentleman by the name of Stelmanic. It's an injectable scaffold for minimally invasive cartilage repair, primarily in the knee, maybe some more also in the ankle. But it's been used in over 12,000 patients in over 30 countries since 2014. So they have a second generation product, which is why I'm involved. They had their patent granted in 26 countries. The clock is ticking. We are currently designated with the FDA as a breakthrough device and rolling through building money to finish our clinical study. And what's interesting is that even though this is a huge medical problem, uh, the product itself, because it's so easy to use and works real well, but not like miraculously well. It's just in the fact that the CEO is a sort of an on the spectrum PhD kind of presenter. We're just having trouble getting traction from investors. They come, they listen, they yawn, and they leave. And so I don't know whether I just need a new presenter, a new kind of a famous TED Talk sort of person, or a better story, um, or what? Because, I've been cartilage repair, whether it be through trauma, which is what we do, or through osteoarthritis, is a universal human problem. And there is no really one size fits all cure. And the beauty of ours is it's fast, it's easy, it's affordable, as opposed to like a cartilage repair in which you grow tissue outside for 6 months. You have to open the knee up, replace it that way. That works very well, by the way, but it's also cost $50,000 to $75,000. Our product, you can use in the OR for a couple of thousand. Anyway, I'm just throwing it out there. Bob gave me some really good advice on another subject once on return on investment. If anybody has anything they want to throw back, I'm open to any.
Yeah, there's one thing you left out, Mark.
What?
You need better investors. What if you've got the right CEO, you've got the right product, you have the right message, but you've got the wrong investor in the audience? And that inevitably is what movies are all about. If you get the right people, that's your audience. It doesn't matter what you say, you'll step in. But of course, Steve Jobs is a different space. He's the one that really put out a message. And is there another Steve Jobs up there? Probably. But the key is if you get a room full of, and all you need is one investor, but if you get a room full of 10 or 20 that are thinking the same way and going along the same wires about that, that might be it. But certainly, what have you tried or what are you thinking to try to remedy this, Mark?
We have about $1 million in commercial business worldwide. In the transition between the old CEO and the new CEO, they lost their CE mark in Europe. So most of their business is outside of Europe. But still, we have a proven product that works. We have initially gone after surgeons, investors. We thought maybe people that were very knowledgeable about the procedure would be the good investors. We've stayed away from VC, and we're now talking to family offices because we think we want maybe more patient investment. I think, Rocky, the biggest problem is we just probably haven't pitched it to enough people enough times.
Well, let me open it up. You've got a room full of intelligent people here that could give you some feedback or thought. Anybody has a question, comment, thought, feedback? And I want to welcome Dr. Steph has joined us too. Anybody?
Mark,
Yeah,
I'm happy to have
We got Bob and then Dr. Steph. Bob, go first.
Yeah, I'm happy to have another free session with you. I'm putting my Calendly link in the chat, Mark. I don't think it's the CEO charisma issue. Matter of fact, there's some research that shows little correlation between charisma and success of the company. And we've got a lot of CEOs out there with Asperger's syndrome and some total sociopaths, which I think Mark Zuckerberg is, and others. So venture capitalists are happy to invest in their sociopath, as long as they're about making them money. But I agree with Rocky that segmenting the investors and getting the right investors is important. Certainly going after doctors is good for this kind of investment. But I've helped people raise about $1 billion, raised about 40 million for my own companies, and can certainly point you in the right direction. I think you have my email from the past. Send me your latest deck, and I'll give you some
Okay.
comments on.
Good. Yeah, I try. I think I may do that book by Clausewitz, if I recall.
Yes, yeah. It's still sitting next to on my bedside table, and I wonder
Gotta
what
read it.
overlaps with the Art of War, which of course has been around the
Yep.
same for 2,000 years, and probably has some overlap with the issues. But I will get to it, and I thank you again for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much,
Bob.
Bob.
Dr.
Glad,
Stuff had
Doctor, sorry we stepped on each other there.
That's
Doc-
okay. No worries. The only thing that I was going to suggest is I spoke with one of the guys from Richard's organization, the Family Office Club, and they have an upcoming family office session in New York that might be of interest. And within that space, you might find the right audience of money that's looking for your opportunity.
The Richards family.
The Family Office Club.
Oh, the Family Office Club. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes.
Yeah,
They
they've been moving
upcoming
down.
conference in 2 weeks. I think it is. It's October 4th through 7th in New York.
Excellent. I'll be in New York on the 1st of October, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. You may want to check it out.
Dr.
Thank you
Stuff,
very
somebody
much.
went.
Offices going into that early space. 10, 15 years ago, they didn't touch raw startups, but I think today they understand if they diversify and do 10 of them, that they have a very good chance of success.
Very good.
Thanks for that, Dr. Stuff. And she's somebody you want to know. She's in the wellness industry. But let's hear from Bob Norton first. Bob has founded 6 companies, raised a lot of capital. He has a CEO boot camp, has a training modules online, over 600 modules of training. He offers a guarantee for businesses. So, Bob, there's a lot there to unpack. Maybe you could share what are the big ideas in your industry and your business. How do you plan to expand your business in the next 6 to 12 months? But first, what's the big ideas in your industry, Bob?
Yeah, well, our big idea is to standardize the leadership operating system of growth companies. These are probably the top 10% companies out there that want to be in the top 1%. Most people don't know that only 1 in 400 companies will ever reach 10 million in sales, and only 1 in 6,300 companies will reach 100 million in sales, according to the Kaufman organization that studies entrepreneurship. And so it's like winning, an Oscar or the Olympics to get to $100 million. I did that twice in a row with my own companies, and that gave me the pedigree. And I've spent 12 years now building airtight management. We have 600 videos, 55 courses, 6 professional certifications that are training for the managers. And it's a hybrid of coaching, consulting, and training with a shared language and set of principles and philosophies that I've curated from over 1,000 books during my 30-year career. So it's very comprehensive. It's about 18 times more scope than is in EOS, which is a very basic, I would call it even a kindergarten cadence for management. It's we have 6 systems, and that is about 1/3 of one of our systems, which is where I get the 18x multiplier. But it's only for companies that are venture capital worthy, which means they need differentiation, high differentiation. They need protectability on that differentiation, and they typically need $1 billion market opportunity 5 years out. Those are the only companies that will attract lots of capital, because they're the only ones that can provide the kinds of high ROI that startup risk compensates for.
Yeah, so Bob, you obviously work with small, medium-sized businesses, enterprises. So can you narrow it down a little bit more? Who is your ideal client that you're looking for at this time?
Yeah, we target $1 to $30 million companies that have reached product market fit, just like most VCs, even though they won't tell you that. Very few invest before you have a minimum viable product and a little bit of traction. Usually that's the universe of angel investors that'll give you the first money for product development. More often than not, that money's coming from, the founders' sweat equity and their own capital, as well as friends and family, to get to the minimum viable product stage where some of the major risks of startups are flushed out. So we're going to work with companies that are ambitious and want to reach $100 million in sales. It's an old rule. It might be outdated now, but VCs don't invest unless there's $1 billion total market opportunity, TAM, because their silly rule of thumb is, if we get 10% of that, we've got $100 million business, and we can have, maybe a double or a triple. It's probably not a home run. Of course, if they get 50% of the market, that becomes a home run with a 50x ROI or 100x ROI or even 1,000x ROI for getting in early and investing in a Tesla or a Facebook or Bitcoin or whatever.
Well, you've got some people in the room that fit that description. Let me open it up to see if Tricia or Mark or Dr. Steph have any questions, comments, thoughts, feedback for Bob. Anybody?
Sounds great. Nice to meet you, Bob.
Yeah, the problem we solve is manyfold, and there are like 36 different advantages or things we bring in with all of this. But the often forgotten fact from Jim Collins, which was a result of his study of over 200 companies in the book Good to Great, is that he concluded that it took 7 to 10 years for the average company to figure out all the internal systems they needed to scale. And we basically drop in pre-built generic systems and then tune them for that company in that space.
Good.
So do you teach anywhere, like in an academic role, Bob, or do you just
I
stay
have
out?
been a guest professor, yeah, at Babson University, which is the #1 university in the country for entrepreneurship for many years now. I taught a risk management class and evaluation of startups for investment there. I've also been part of many investment groups at the MIT Enterprise Forum and Northeastern and various others. But most of my teaching has been my own private seminars
Right.
for CEOs and startups. Entrepreneurshipu.com is a separate course website, and that's one of the foundational stones of airtight management, that we can sell those courses and certification separately.
You should do a TED Talk on why the average Joe should never be an entrepreneur.
It's on my list. Yep, you nailed it. I've actually got 3 TED Talks on the list. I've got a cure for a preventative issue for cancer that could potentially eliminate 20 or 30% of cancers, that needs a TED Talk. And problem is I don't know how to make money from it and therefore invest time in it. And entrepreneurship is a couple of TED Talks there. Yeah.
Wow,
Thanks for that, Bob. I appreciate it. So let's hear from Dr. Steph. And her journey is the wellness journey. And you've got a really interesting story to tell. At one point, you were working in Jamaica. Now you're expanding globally. Now you're working with, last time I thought it was 1 million. Well, maybe you could say it better, Dr. Steph. What is your big ideas in your industry, in your business, and how do we work, or how do you show up in the next 6 to 12 months to drive your business? Dr. Steph.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yes. So I'm in the wellness space, which, by the way, the global wellness combined ecosystem is growing by $1 trillion a year for the next 3 years. It currently represents about 5% $5.2 trillion, expected to go north of 8 trillion by 2027. And so that includes sectors such as wellness, tourism, wellness related real estate, and then all of the various products and services and solutions within those spaces. And so Zeniverse Wellness Group, before I was a real estate developer, I was in the advertising and marketing communications space where I advised companies that occupy the sectors that I'm also dominating and occupying now. So early in my career, one of those companies was a Claremont Resort Hotel that at the time was doing this new thing called investing $1 million in this spa before many of the brands domestically had made such investments. So from Claremont, Hyatt's were my clients, Cedars, my clients, a bunch of clients. Basically, I took a business from my mother's garage to a $250 million backed JV with 8 offices and 400 employees by the time I was 27. And then I segued into real estate development where I exited a $3.5 billion portfolio of luxury apartments. I'm a real estate developer by profession. And so my expertise is ground up new construction. My smallest project is normally a $150 million development project. And then I also oversaw a venture group for a while. I've served as adjunct faculty. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 18. And so I'm able to say that this business here reflects officially a vision that I had 50 years ago, because this year I turned 59. So absolutely, it's a venture that has been built, with years of experience, as well as all of those other things. But what it is I looked at the demographics, and of course, we all know Procter & Gamble built its portfolio based on serving products for the lives of the boomer generation. And so I too kind of looked at certain big trends. And so we see that in the boomers are very much interested in longevity, and they're looking at all kinds of ways to accomplish those types of outcomes. And there was a study done on the blue zones that started to share some of what's required to accomplish those types of outcomes. So I decided, what did I want to do? It was me asking myself about 15 years ago, where do I want to be when I'm 120? And I said, one, I want to be the fastest woman. I want to win the 100-meter dash and the long jump. So those are 2 ambitions. So I'll be training for that. And then I said, I used to have the best dinner parties and just conversations, rich fireside chats everywhere. And I said, I really should have a portfolio of places around the world that people look forward to, not only going and hanging out, having the most fun in their lives, but literally re-stimulating their mind, bodies, and souls, right? And so because I spend so much time in thought leadership as well, then not only do I have content, but all of the thought leaders that I follow have amazing books and authors. This would be our place, right? And so literally I figured out on, they say the first go round the back of the napkin, can we do this and can we make money? And guess what? Every way, that answer is yes. So I acquired my phase 1 instead of doing ground up to get to the money right away. I curated a portfolio now of about 20 properties that I've underwritten that make sense for my model. They're either on an organic farm or they're on a beachfront location, and they're single owner operators. So they're not part of a chain. So they have the ability to be flagged. They have some community goodwill, or they have great bones. And so what that allows is a shorter period to bring that asset online. The first property that I'm closing on was just recognized 3 weeks ago by TripAdvisor as the 3rd best food destination in the world. So all we're doing is adding our wellness solution on top of that success, and we convert the model from a daily RevPAR to an all-inclusive wellness week. And that in and of itself changes the math by an 8 to 10x. So we go from a property that maybe makes normally about $500,000 a year between its foodie show and it's a small boutique property, to where we're making $300,000 in our first quarter, our first December, our first month of operation, 300,000 a month with 10 guests a week. But by the following quarter, between January and March, since that is peak season in Jamaica, that number will double to 600,000 a month with just 20 guests wellness weeks per week. And here's the thing, that's because we have 6 rooms stubbed in. We just need to finish that construction and finish building out the spa. So for that small asset, I'm raising $6 million. $6 million will get us over the finish line and have us open by December this year and be able to start capturing dollars immediately. My larger raise is truly $100 million, and I have locations, the additional locations that I've already underwritten that provide us with competitive advantage. And then I also have the markets that I've underwritten in Italy. I have Cyprus. I have about 5 countries in Africa. I have an island in Senegal. I have the Bahamas. So basically, I have the DR. I have a number of opportunities that have been presented, and as well as our U.S. domestic application is in the corporate VIP clubs. And guess what? I just saw an article 2 days ago, and Tony Robbins and this guy Sam Nazarian, who used to do clubs and parties in LA, have just joined forces to introduce 15 of their boutique hotel and kind of wellness clubs. So listen, there's $1 trillion new money available. They can't swallow $1 trillion by themselves. It's just validation that the market is growing. And those of us that understand it, we're getting our piece of it. And I'm an innovator. This is not my first time at the rodeo, so I know how to do this. And, much like Bob, I've been training entrepreneurs since I was 18. I was a national spokesperson for collegiate entrepreneur, you name it, I've probably done it in the space, startup weekends, college, all of that stuff. So yes, this is something that I'm in love with. And I'm so happy because I get to help my friends heal and live their best lives. Look, we've done tests where we've sent patients home with early onset dementia because we detoxed their bodies. And one lady, she couldn't recognize, she was in a diaper, she couldn't walk. She is walking. She is talking. She is recognizing her family members now. So we really are doing some things that are cutting edge.
I think we found our next oligomedic CEO. How about
Wow.
if you start working with things like medical devices? But Dr. Steph, you're looking for, actually, when you mentioned Tony Robbins, I shook his hand one day, but and so that was, I thought, what a thrill. But you're searching upwards of 100 million. And I like the $1 trillion word that just came into my vocabulary a couple of years ago. I didn't know what a trillion existed, but now it's in my vocabulary. And I'm glad and thrilled and honored that you're using that in the same sentence. So I've got a lot of questions, but let me open it up. We've got some thinkers here from different spaces that perhaps can give you some thoughts, ideas, questions, comments. Let me open it up. Does anybody have some thoughts for Dr. Steph? Anybody?
Yeah, Steph or Dr. Steph, I don't know what you like to be called. I would caution you against using the $1 trillion word. That's actually a red flag for amateurs in venture capital. You're basically in the steering wheel business and you're bringing in the market for all cars. And venture capitalists are turned off by that because it's hyperbolic and exaggeration. It sounds to me like you're doing a roll up, but you have a program you can inject into these facilities. And it's really easy to raise money for real estate because it's asset backed and you can get it from banks. It's a whole different world when you're talking about risk capital or, roll ups sort of being in the middle. So, I think the first words out of your mouth as a positioning statement should be, we're acquiring spas and properties that we will inject this new program in. I'm jumping to the conclusion that this 600,000 double in revenue is all from essentially an upsale at those properties of this new health program. And I don't know whether that's true or not, but it sounds like a great value add to the property. And that's what PE investors and roll-up investors want to do. They want to buy a portfolio and then change or tweak the business model to immediately have a bump in revenue, which is a great way to drive ROI for large amounts of investment with lower risk.
Yeah, good point, Bob. Thank you. Although I do think using the $1 trillion word is okay to do that because real estate is huge. We're talking about a big world. It's not that she's asking for $1 trillion. She's asking for 100 million. That's a differentiator. And VCs are going to get turned off because it's sunny or it's too cold or it's too dark. Whatever turns it off.
Qualify it. I'd say in the company of sophisticated investors, don't make that statement. There's a 100% chance that that's bad to say to these people. I've talked to thousands of investors and I've been doing it for 40 years, and it can hype up a conversation with dumb money. It will turn off smart money because they're basically saying you don't know where your niche is.
That's true. Although if you say $100,000 or if you say 1,000.
I guess you missed the part when I described the overall ecosystem and said that there were several different elements that make up this overall $1 trillion. Remember, of course, I know I spoke with a lot of enthusiasm, so perhaps you missed that detail. But yes, you're right. When it is that I describe this, there's an illustration that describes the ecosystem and the subsegments, and specifically the wellness piece I described as the $651 billion piece of that segment. But then the real estate is another part, and then the nutrition is another part, and then the health and fitness is another part. So by the time I show you each of our pieces of those parts, you begin to understand that I know very well our niche and I understand our market inside and out. So again, I wasn't able to give you those details, but yes, I do understand. And I have been presenting this in spaces. And of course, I'm in spaces with real money and large money, and this will happen and get over the finish line. But I do appreciate the feedback.
Well, you hooked me in. When you say $1 trillion, I'm thinking, oh, this is a big thinker. Now, implementation is different. Thinking big, I encourage that. And if it turns off people, it does, but the bigger the better. Move a mountain. I think Elon Musk wants to go to Mars or to Mars. I mean, how crazy is that? No, I'm not going, and neither is he, by the way. He said he's not going to go either. But that's big thinking. Let me open it up. Any other thoughts, comments, feedback for Steph?
Well, ChatGPT says it's a $161 billion market, and by 2030, it will be a $379 billion market.
So your information is based on U.S. numbers, the global market that I'm speaking to.
No, which that's global, according to ChatGPT.
Of which is upcoming. The updated data has been released by the Global Wellness Summit. In fact, the summit is happening in about 60 days, of which I've been invited as a delegate. So I do have the preliminary data. I get the data daily as they update the research. So the global market numbers reflect the numbers that I've shared. The US market is much smaller, and those numbers are in the numbers that you're referencing.
Yeah, you always want to go toe-to-toe with numbers. VCs or investors are all about numbers. So if you can go toe-to-toe with that, match them up or get a better ChatGPT. But Mark has a thought for you. Go ahead, Mark. I think you were going to hire Steph, but I'm putting words in your mouth.
Well, I certainly give you an award for the most enthusiastic presentation I've heard lately. In the word enthusiasm, I learned a long time ago, comes from the Greek entheos, which means the God within. So you speak with that sort of force, which is good. The world you're describing is a world that I'm not familiar with. I'm more of a Hilton guy than a spa and Senegal guy, but I am from the orthopedic and musculoskeletal space, and the idea of holistic wellness is invading every part of that. So we're doing things, with stem cells, platelet-rich protein, PRP injections. The whole world wants that. Preoperative planning now includes nutrition planning. Enhanced recovery after surgery includes a lot of the things that used to be associated with wellness. So just from the more parochial medical side, the wellness spectrum is becoming a huge part of, that ecosystem too. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Yes, you're right. We, in fact, are training doctors. I'm a tech geek. I used to build computers when I was 15 at UC Berkeley. So I've always been, kind of like the closet techie. I decided to be the one that could liaise between my highly technical teams and our business processes very early on in my career, by purpose. So in this business, med tech is a big part of what it is that we use in our codified treatment protocols that I've done. I've taken basically work with functional medicine physicians and others, and then codified a certain set of treatment protocols that we'll be able to not only certify, but continue to develop as well as interact with others to ultimately create our own technology. But right now, we're working with a company called Comra, a radiant technology that has a device called Comra. And the Comra device was designed to aid the astronauts when they were deployed in space because they can't go and see a doctor. And so the device aims to address all of these things and many of the things that you're seeing as it relates to stem cells, but without being invasive. And so that is one of the things that we look at is how can we provide stem cell activation, regeneration by natural sources as opposed to invasive. So our treatment protocols tend to complement someone. We deal with post-op patients often, and we're able to accelerate their recovery in a natural way and help them to detox their bodies from medicines and other things that could potentially cause other side effects, long-term, uses, abuses, and things of that nature. So we tend to be a different healing source in that regard. And what we're able to do is we're able to customize each person's treatment protocol. So you're not going to have a protocol that somebody else's protocol. We're able to customize based upon seeing what your organs, what we do is we do a body assessment. And so we find out what's happening with your organs, and we find out where you have particular toxins in your system. And so then we formulate a natural detox of teas or tonics, or what we say are tinctures. And those are the things that then allow you to gently detox your body. And then from there, we start feeding you back phytonutrient dense foods and vegetables organically grown that oftentimes are just hours, if that, off from their source, the tree, the coconut. And so that activates the healing process within your body. And that changes your feeling inside out. So your gut health is accomplished within 24 to 48 hours kind of thing. And you begin to and continue to build on that. And that is why we require a 7-day, 6-night minimum stay, because we know that we need a certain amount of time to help to transform your body. But yes, we do complement what it is that, say, clients following the type of treatment that you've mentioned, Mark. We offer those kinds of post-recovery supports. And we're also marketing and training doctors on the Comra technology, because some of them find that it allows them to end up preventing some of the surgical procedures that maybe they would have thought they needed, because they can begin to help before operational procedures are considered or taken.
Well, Dr. Steph, you had me at living to 120, doing the 100-yard dash, and doing the broad jump. So after that, it was wow. So, but I want to be respectful of time. I certainly want to encourage you to join us again in a month. The opportunities that you have a space for investors on a monthly basis. But certainly my invitation is you join our community, peersondemand.com, and encourage you to engage in conversations, different industries, different experience levels, different locations, but you'll find them there. And also tomorrow we'll have it for business owners, and on Monday for European executives. So if you're open for that, to join us, Tricia, join us again on Monday. You'll have a different audience, and on Tuesday for cannabis executives. But certainly consider joining our world. And our world is about business, and our world is about co-ventures. And I'm looking for co-ventures that could participate, and I see them in this session. So with that, I want to thank you for joining. Join us again when you can. Does anybody have any closing comments, thoughts? Anybody?
Well, I would just like to say it's been an absolute pleasure to hear Dr. Steph and Mark and Bob and Rocky. Thank you so much for the whole introduction. I did want to tell Dr. Steph I have the tinctures and I have the coffee alternative for your for all your amazing outlets, and I love what you're doing, and I wish I had the 120 million to give you, but